Welcome to Mondays on the Mount. This is episode 3, and it is Monday, January 24th, 2022. In the Old Testament, meekness is a quality that always brings about God's blessing. Meekness is a key trait of Moses, as we see in Numbers 12. Job promises deliverance for the meek/poor, as well as for those who experience suffering. Psalms 25, 34, 37, 76, 147, and 149 all speak of God lifting up, teaching, saving, taking pleasure in those who are meek. In the New Testament, meekness shows up in 3 places. 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 3 through 4 speak about meekness. Here's what he says. Don't be concerned about the outward beauty of fancy hairstyles, expensive jewelry, or beautiful clothes. You should clothe yourselves instead with the beauty that comes from within, the unfading beauty of a gentle or meek and quiet spirit, which is so precious to God. Now, this passage shows up in a larger discussion about how we are to live out the gospel and to draw people to Christ. In this passage, Peter is addressing wives in the ways that they relate to their husbands. Peter says something extraordinary, that by the way a wife lives, she can draw her husband, who may be an unbeliever or resistant to the gospel, to Christ. We also see meekness show up in Matthew chapter 21 in the Triumphal Entry. Here's what Matthew tells us. It says, "This took place to fulfill the prophecy that said, 'Tell the people of Jerusalem, look, your king is coming to you. He is humble,'" which is the word meek, "riding on a donkey's colt." Now, there's some visual irony here with the triumphal entry. We would expect Jesus to enter into Jerusalem on some sort of war horse or a chariot or something, yet we see that he does exactly the opposite. He rides into Jerusalem on a very, very small donkey, and it might have even looked a little bit funny. Matthew tells us that this scene is actually a fulfillment of the prophecy found in Zechariah 9:9. In fact, that's the text that Matthew quotes to show Jesus entering into Jerusalem. But this doesn't make the image any less strange. Jesus, the conquering yet humble hero, is the epitome of meekness. Meekness is a strength that doesn't have to prove itself. Finally, we see meekness show up in the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus says, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." Now, did you know that this portion of the Sermon on the Mount is a direct quote from Psalm 37:11? Now, if you read the entire psalm, you'll see that it's about the ultimate triumph of people who are poor and oppressed. It's also about the downfall of those who are violent, wicked, and corrupt. This reversal of fortunes is why the meek will inherit the earth. So now let's work on our scripture memorization for this week. We're going to begin in Matthew chapter 5. We're going to start with verse 1, and we're going to work our way all the way through verse 6 this week. I'm going to put my trusty goggles of truth on, and we'll see how I do. "And seeing the multitudes, he went up on the mountain. And when he was seated, his disciples came to him. And he opened his mouth, and he taught them, saying, 'Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled.'" Thank you for tuning in to Mondays on the Mount.